Hello boys and girls. Well, we're back to our War of the Worlds build, and what I've got here is the base that I'm going to use with my ship and my war machine essentially in the places they're going to be once they're mounted. I tried a couple different positions, that's why we got the extra holes over here, and I pretty much settled on this. Of course, once this is all done, the heat ray, this will be tight. The ship will be here, blown in half, big explosion here, and then we're going to have a shock wave coming out on the water. The shock wave I do is actually going to be bigger than this. This is almost like initially when the explosion happened, so we're going to probably bring the shock wave out, probably out to about here, okay? And after all, it was a big enough explosion to blow the ship in half. Alright, and I've already got the LED lights set up. I had some 3-volt LED lights. I thought they were going to be too dim for this, but I had enough of them that I was able to put them all together, and I think they're going to work out great for the explosion. So we'll get to that later on. But what we're going to do, we're not going to be using epoxy on this. Essentially, we're going to be using spackle or joint compound, which it's used on your walls. We're going to wet it down just a little bit so we can work with it a little bit longer, and we'll do all this area outside the shock cone, okay? And we're not going to have a super rough sea. Basically we're just going to have rolling waves in here, not too big. Remember, this is 1/350th scale, so we don't want to overwhelm the rest of the scene. And then we'll go back over that with some cheesecloth with PVA and get our texture that we want on our ocean. And then we'll come back in here with some thin down spackle, and we'll brush it on to kind of blend it into the rest of the ocean, and that'll give us our striations from the shock wave, the shock cone, and then we can detail that out a little bit more later on. Alright, and then we'll paint it and clear it and just keep playing with it until we get it the way we like it. My wiring, I went ahead and got this thing up. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's up on little tabs because my wiring goes through the base. So I got power going here, here, and at the end of this. And I've already got my side pieces built. So as soon as this is set, before I put the ship and this in place, I'll go ahead and get the side pieces on with the battery packs, and then we'll wire it all up, and then we can just continue to detail it on out. And of course the white caps and exploded area underneath the ship, we'll be doing that with cotton and PVA. Any other splashes we've got, cotton and PVA. Just blend the colors in the way we like it, just keep working it, and that's where we're going to be at. So let's go ahead and get started on this. Okay, so I've put on the spackle or wall patch, whatever you want to call it, around the shock wave, okay? And I'm not using your typical joint compound you might get from Home Depot or Lowe's. I'm using this. It's Worth. You can get it at Walmart. And as joint compound goes, it sucks, okay? It's really hard to work with. It's lumpy, but for our purposes it works great because I can spread it out. It won't get too smooth. I can still work it in, and as you can see, we've been able to work in a wave pattern. It's still water soluble, so we'll let this dry, and then we'll soften the waves a little bit, and then we'll add our cheesecloth on top of it to get our texture going, and then we'll work on this area here, okay? But yeah, as joint compound goes, this stuff is terrible. Don't use this at home. And the only reason I even know it was terrible was because I used it once and I didn't like it, and I threw it in my hobby bin, and it works out perfect for me anyways, doing this kind of work, just because it doesn't pull out real smooth. Okay, and prior to doing this, I left a still photo for this too at the end of the video. I put down a bunch of PVA cement just to help this bond a little bit. And once we got the cheesecloth on top of this and sealed in, we won't have to worry about any cracks or anything. But that's where we're at with this. So let me get back to it. Alrighty then. So we've gone ahead and started this process. And what we did, we took some of our sheetrock mud or spackle, thinned it down just a little bit with water, not a lot. A little bit of water goes a long way with this stuff, and started spreading it out in a pattern like that. That'll give us our shock pattern. And you just want to keep working this out. And you want to do this before this dries completely, so you can soften the edge up. Alright, so I'm going to keep doing this, and we'll get back. Okay, so the preliminary part of that is done. You can see our blast pattern. Okay, and you hold back, you can see we have a little bit of a wave pattern. Okay, and our fighting machine is over here, the ship is over here, so the waves are moving into shore. Okay, and remember, we didn't make these giant waves. These are going to be softened even more, and because we're working in 1/350th scale, the ship itself would be about 100 feet long. I'm sorry, about 300 feet long. So that is why you don't want to make your waves too big, because they're out of scale with everything. Okay, unless you want a stormy sea. So we're gonna let this dry and move forward. Alrighty then. So here's where we're at with this. What I've done, I'm going to back up a little bit to get the focus correct on this. I went ahead and laid some cheesecloth on this, just one layer. So you need to peel your cheesecloth back so you have one layer. And I've laid that down on this. I think I used like 4 pieces. Piece here, a little piece here, a little piece around the corner, a little piece here. Okay. And what I did is I used some Mod Podge to lay that down with. It's basically PVA, it's basically thick PVA. Okay, laid it down, and that begins to soften these big ripples we have. Okay, and what you want to do is let that dry, put another coat down, let that dry, and then do at least a 3rd coat. Okay, and you want to dapple it. So you want to take your paintbrush and you want to just put it on, dab it, dab it, dab it. You don't want brush strokes in this at all. Dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it. Okay, that's going to give you the rippled effect across the surface. And then when it comes to our shot cone, there you'd like to put some brush strokes in away from the center of the blast. Okay, and be very light when you do this. Okay, and this stuff dries pretty rapidly. And actually, I put mine in front of a fan to dry, but let's see if I can put this up so you guys can see the effect. I'm not sure you can or not. Being white, it makes it very hard to. There we go. It's going to give you your rippled effect along with the waves. And what you want to do, you want to put this stuff on enough to make that grid pattern that the cheesecloth has. You want to make that grid pattern go away. Okay, and as you can see, it's terrible. This is a terrible phone. Pretty much got the grid pattern gone, and we have some larger waves coming across the surface here. And what you want to do, you want to let this dry for 24 hours. It's already dry to touch after just a couple hours. But all this stuff that we put on here tends to shrink down as it dries. So you want to let it dry for 24 hours, let it shrink down, look at it and make sure there's no grid patterns or any evidence of cheesecloth in there. And then if you have to put another coat on, put another coat on. Alright, that's going to be it for tonight. Tomorrow we're going to spray this. We're going to do a dark blue on one side and a lighter blue on the other side. I was going to go with kind of a greenish color, but you know, I'm going to keep it simple stupid on this one. So we're just going to do sea blue, and then we'll work on getting the ship mounted, getting the tripod up, getting as splashes we want done, working on the LEDs. So that's where we're headed with this. So I hope y'all are learning something from this. If you like it, man, subscribe, for crying out loud, and hit the like button, man, so that other people can see this stuff. Alright guys, see y'all later.